Amigo Brothers is a short story by American author and social worker Piri Thomas. Piri Thomas was born in Harlem, New York on September 30, 1928 and died on 17 October, 2011. His mother is of Puerto Rican descent and his father is Cuban. Thomas's full name is John Peter Thomas, Juan Pedro Tomas. The nickname, Piri, was given to him by his mother. It comes from the name of a bird called the Piri. His early life was marred by a 7-year prison sentence after a shootout with the police. It was during his imprisonment that he began writing what would later become his first book, Down These Mean Streets. After his release from prison, Thomas aided young gang members in getting out of their current situations. Amigo Brothers. Antonio Cruz and Felix Vargas were both 17 years old. They were so together in friendship that they felt themselves to be brothers. They had known each other since childhood, growing up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in the same building. Antonio was fair, lean, and lanky, while Felix was dark, short, and husky. Antonio's hair was always falling over his eyes, while Felix wore his black hair in a natural afro style. Each youngster had a dream of someday becoming lightweight champion of the world. Every chance they had, the boys worked out, sometimes at the boys' club and sometimes at the gym. Early morning sunrises would find them running along the East River Drive, wrapped in sweatshirts, short towels around their necks. While some youngsters were into street negatives, Antonio and Felix slept, ate, rapped, and dreamt positive. Between them, they had a collection of fight magazines plus, a scrapbook filled with torn tickets to every boxing match they had ever attended and some clippings of their own. Now, after a series of elimination bouts, they had been informed that they were to meet each other in the division finals that were scheduled for the 7th of August, 2 weeks away, and the winner to represent the boys' club in the Golden Gloves Championship tournament. The two boys continued to run together along the East River Drive. But even when joking with each other, they both sensed a wall rising between them. One morning, less than a week before their bout, they met as usual for their daily workout. Antonio glanced at Felix, who kept his eyes purposely straight ahead, pausing from time to time to do some fancy leg work while throwing 1-2s followed by uppercuts to an imaginary jaw. After a mile or so, Felix puffed and said, "Let's stop for a while, bro. I think we both got something to say to each other. Man. I don't know how to come out with it." Antonio helped. "It's about our fight, right?" "Yeah, right." Felix's eyes squinted at the rising orange sun. "I've been thinking about it too. In fact, since we found out it was going to be me and you, I've been awake at night, pulling punches on you, trying not to hurt you." "Same here. It isn't natural not to think about the fight. I mean, we both are fighters, and we both want to win. But only one of us can win. There are no draws in the eliminations." Felix tapped Antonio gently on the shoulder. "I don't mean to sound like I'm bragging, bro. But I want to win, fair and square." Antonio nodded quietly. "Yeah. We both know that in the ring the better man wins. It's fair, Tony. When we get into the ring, it's got to be like we never met. We got to be like two heavy strangers that want the same thing, and only one can have it. You understand?" "I know." Tony smiled. "No pulling punches. We go all the way." "Yeah, that's right. Listen, Tony. Don't you think it's a good idea if we don't see each other until the day of the fight? I'm going to stay with my Aunt Lucy in the Bronx." Tony scratched his nose pensively. "Yeah, it would be better for our heads." He held out his hand, palm upward. "Deal. Deal." Felix lightly slapped open skin. Ready for some more running? Tony asked lamely. No bro. Let's cut it here. You go on. I like to get things together in my head. You aren't worried, are you? Tony asked. No way man. Felix laughed out loud. I just think it's cooler if we split right here. After the fight, we can get it together again like nothing ever happened. The Amigo brothers were not ashamed to hug each other tightly. The evening before the big fight, Tony made his way to the roof of his building. In the quiet early dark, he peered over the ledge. He tried not to think of Felix, feeling he had succeeded in psyching his mind. But only in the ring would he really know. To spare Felix hurt, he would have to knock him out, early and quick. Up in the South Bronx, Felix decided to take in a movie in an effort to keep Antonio's face away from his fists. The flick was The Champion with Kirk Douglas. The champion was getting beaten. Felix felt a shock. He saw himself in the ring, blasting Antonio against the ropes. He walked up some dark streets, deserted except for small pockets of wary-looking kids wearing gang colors. Walking the streets had not relaxed him, neither had the fight flick. All it had done was to stir him up. He let himself quietly into his Aunt Lucy's apartment and went straight to bed. Antonio was passing some heavy time on his rooftop. How would the fight tomorrow affect his relationship with Felix? After all, fighting was like any other profession. Friendship had nothing to do with it. A gnawing doubt crept in. He cut negative thinking really quick by doing some speedy fancy dance steps. Felix, his amigo brother, was not going to be Felix at all in the ring. Just an opponent with another face. Antonio went to sleep. Like his friend, he prayed for victory via a quick, clean knockout in the first round. Large posters plastered all over the walls of local shops announced the fight between Antonio Cruz and Felix Vargas as the main bout. The fight had created great interest in the neighborhood. Antonio and Felix were well liked and respected. Each had his own loyal following. The fight was scheduled to take place in Tompkins Square Park. The morning of the fight, Tompkins Square was a beehive of activity with numerous workers setting up the ring, the seats, and the guest speaker's stand. The scheduled bouts began shortly after noon, and the park had begun filling up even earlier. The waiting time was over. Felix was escorted from the classroom by a dozen fans in white t-shirts. Antonio was escorted down a different stairwell and guided through a roped-off path. As the two climbed into the ring, the crowd exploded with a roar. Antonio and Felix both bowed gracefully and then raised their arms in acknowledgement. Antonio tried to be cool. He turned slowly to meet Felix's eyes looking directly into his. Felix nodded his head and Antonio responded. Bong, bong, bong. The roar turned to stillness. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer spoke slowly. Now the moment we have all been waiting for, the main event between two fine young Puerto Rican fighters. In this corner, weighing 134 pounds, Felix Vargas. And in this corner, weighing 133 pounds, Antonio Cruz. The winner will represent the boys' club in the Tournament of Champions, the Golden Gloves. There will be no draw. May the best man win. The cheering of the crowd shook the window panes of the old buildings surrounding Tompkins Square Park. At the center of the ring, the referee was giving instructions to the youngsters. Keep your punches up. No low blows. No punching on the back of the head. Keep your heads up. Understand? Let's have a clean fight. Now shake hands and come out fighting. Both youngsters touched gloves and nodded. They turned and danced quickly to their corners. Bong. Bong. Round 1. Felix and Antonio turned and faced each other squarely in a fighting pose. Felix wasted no time. He came in fast, head low, half hunched toward his right shoulder, and lashed out with a straight left. He missed a right cross as Antonio slipped the punch and countered with 3 lefts that snapped Felix's head back, sending a mild shock coursing through him. If Felix had any small doubt about their friendship affecting their fight, it was being neatly dispelled. Antonio's left hand was like a piston pumping jabs one right after another with seeming ease. Felix bobbed and weaved and never stopped pouring in. He knew that at long range he was at a disadvantage. Antonio had too much reach on him. Only by coming in close could Felix hope to achieve the dreamed-of knockout. Antonio knew the dynamite that was stored in his Amigo Brothers' fist. He ducked a short right and missed a left hook. Felix trapped him against the ropes just long enough to pour some punishing rights and lefts to Antonio's hard midsection. Antonio slipped away from Felix, crashing 2 lefts to his head, which set Felix's right ear to ringing. Bong! Felix walked briskly back to his corner. Antonio gracefully danced his way toward his stool. Bong! Bong! Round 2. Felix was off his stool and rushed to Antonio like a bull, sending a hard right to his head. Antonio, hurt, sent back a blurring barrage of lefts and rights that only meant pain to Felix. Felix bobbed and weaved, occasionally punching his 2 gloves together. Antonio waited for the rush that was sure to come. Felix closed in and feinted with his left shoulder and threw his right instead. Rights to the body. Lefts to the head. Neither fighter was giving an inch. Suddenly a short right caught Antonio squarely on the chin. His long legs turned to jelly, and his arms flailed out desperately. Felix, grunting like a bull, threw wild punches from every direction. Antonio, groggy, bobbed and weaved, evading most of the blows. Suddenly his head cleared. His left flashed out hard and straight, catching Felix on the bridge of his nose. In a fog, Felix heard the roaring of the crowd, who seemed to have gone insane. His head cleared to hear the bell sound at the end of the round. His trainer sat him down on the stool. In his corner, Antonio was doing what all fighters do when they are hurt. They sit and smile at everyone. The referee signaled the ring doctor to check the fighters out. He did so and then gave his okay. The cold water sponges brought clarity to both Amigo brothers. They were rubbed until their circulation ran free. Bong! Round 3, the final round. Up to now it had been tic-tac-toe, pretty much even. But everyone knew there could be no draw and that this round would decide the winner. This time, to Felix's surprise, it was Antonio who came out fast, charging across the ring. Felix braced himself but couldn't ward off the barrage of punches. Felix tapped his gloves and commenced his attack anew. Antonio, throwing boxer's caution to the winds, jumped in to meet him. Both pounded away. Neither gave an inch, and neither fell to the canvas. They fought toe-to-toe. The sounds of their blows were loud in contrast to the silence of a crowd gone completely mute. The referee was stunned by their savagery. Bong! 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 The bell sounded over and over again. Felix and Antonio were past hearing. Their blows continued to pound on each other like hailstones. Finally, the referee and the 2 trainers pried Felix and Antonio apart. Cold water was poured over them to bring them back to their senses. They looked around and then rushed toward each other. A cry of alarm surged through Tompkins Square Park. Was this a fight to the death instead of a boxing match? The fear soon gave way to wave upon wave of cheering as the 2 amigos embraced. No matter what the decision, they knew they would always be champions to each other. Bong! 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 Ladies and gentlemen, the winner and representative to the Golden Gloves Tournament of Champions is The announcer turned to point to the winner and found himself alone. Arm in arm, the champions had already left the ring. Antonio Cruz and Felix Vargas were childhood friends. They were of Puerto Rican descent. They were both 17 years old. They were so together in friendship that they felt themselves to be brothers. They lived on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in the same building. Antonio was fair, lean, and lanky, while Felix was dark, short, and husky. Antonio's hair was always falling over his eyes, while Felix had black hair in African style. Both of them were interested in boxing and trained hard to achieve their dream of becoming the world lightweight champion. The conflict begins when they were informed that they were to meet in the finals of the boys' club's boxing tournament. Both of them wanted to win and participate in the Golden Gloves tournament. They feared that their friendship will no longer be the same after the match. They lost the peace of mind. They decides to part ways for a short time to get their minds together. They fought furiously and without slight regard for their friendship. The audience thought that it was a match unto death. However, after the fight they embraces to the surprise of everyone present. They left the ring without waiting for the result of the match. They are true champions.